Welcome to yet another episode of Journey of a Question. Today with us we have Samanway Banerjee, who's a very young quizzer, quizmaster, and perhaps has done tens and hundreds of quizzes all across India. Samanway, thank you so much for joining in and welcome on the show.
Thanks, Jalas. Thank you so much. Thanks for inviting me. It's an absolute pleasure.
Right. Let's dive straight into it. We have one question that I really liked, and I wanted you to come discuss that. But of course, apart from that, we have two more questions that you've brought to the table, and we shall discuss those as well. With your permission, should we go ahead?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's dive
All right.
straight in. Yeah.
All right. Here's the question that you posted on a Facebook group, and I really, really liked it, which is why I thought it would be great if you could come and decipher this for us. So, someone may take it on.
Yeah. So it reads, born in 1953, around the time of the death of a famous leader, Ace has been a former deputy CM of his state, having started his political journey way back in the late 1980s. Around the same time, somebody called N too was elected for the first time. Now he is currently the principal secretary of the party that both Ace and N are part of. The veteran leader contested his fifth straight elections from the Tiruchi West constituency in 2021. Now G, another guy, was first elected from the Ranipet constituency in 1996. So in 2021, he will most likely be ushered in as a Minister of Handlooms and Textiles. So what do S, N, and G stand for? So why will I ask this question is a first question itself. So what do S, N, and G stand for? That's the question.
Right. Of course, I've seen the answer, so will give like three
Yeah.
4 seconds to everybody who's watching this on YouTube to crack this. And yeah, I think if you could dive into the facet that you talked about, which is like, why would you ask this? Is first let's give them the answer and then talk about it.
Absolutely. So as you can understand, see, S, N, and G are, are evocative of their first letters, right? Maybe their surname or names as such. So 1953, if you remember, and currently, politics, see, Tiruchi West is, of course, down south in Tamil Nadu. So you already know which state is this, first of all.
Right.
Second, if he was a deputy CM at that point, so he's probably there is the CM. So who is the CM? Is somebody called M.K. Stalin. So that is S. So Stalin, Joseph Stalin, the world leader of the former USSR, he
Right.
passed away around 1953, and M.K. Stalin was, born within 4 to 5 days from when he passed away, and that is why his father actually named him after Joseph Stalin. So S is sorted. If you go into that, S part is sorted, but we have N and G. Then how is N and G relevant? Again. So if that means if S is named after someone else, there's a chance that N and G too will be named after somebody else. Around that time, who are the famous leaders that we have whose name, whose surname starts with N and G respectively? So that is N is Nehru and G is Gandhi. So these are Stalin, Nehru, and Gandhi. So all people belonging to these surnames have actually come up once again in the mainstream politics
Right.
from South. I mean, it's the 1940s once again. So that is Stalin, Nehru, and Gandhi. So that was the question.
I have three quick observations that I'd like to make. Like
Correct.
the
Yes.
the fun part is where you put, like you mentioned, you put S, N, and G, which are seemingly unrelated, letters that you would use instead of a usual X, Y, and Z. If you had to mask them off, you specifically chose those. First up, indicating that there might be something. Like why is the quizmaster suddenly using S, N, or G? And then for your second part, you go to the context, which is the current political arena that we were faced with. So that is context number two. And the third part that I really like is, if I remember correctly, you, along with your answer, you usually put out like your source of information or where you get the gist from. And in what I understand from the particular answer bit that you put out is that the framing sort of comes from or is a derivation of what the headline was. Uh, so if you could tell them more about the headline or read out that headline.
Yeah, so I think if I remember correctly, that the headline was around that Stalin, Nehru, and Gandhi comes back in Indian politics once again,
Right,
right? It's on those lines,
right.
something along those lines.
It's
So
a money
that really
control
attracted.
article. Yeah, it's a
Absolutely, that
very
was a money control
clickbaity
article.
article. Yeah, it's a very
Yes,
clickbaity
absolutely.
article.
See, the thing is that whoever was doing the article and whoever the quizmaster is, there is one thing common in both of these people, is that he really wants to have the attention of his target audience around that point in time. All right,
Beautiful.
which is why that is the basis of every clickbait article around the world. It's nothing in India, and we have seen clickbait article with images that have nothing to do with the article as such. But they're still there. Sometimes we kind of blame them, but this was really, it was intelligent. It was very suave, and that is why I thought that it can be transformed into an actual question. So see, your first observation that was very interesting was that you said that I used S, N, and G instead of X, Y, and Z. Right. That's exact. I mean, it's called Pune styles because in Pune they
Right.
say they tried this idea of X, Y, and Z questions. The first thing I did S, N, and G is because people will automatically see what as a quiz master, as a content producer, my idea is to nudge people towards answer. Right.
Correct.
Every successful quizmaster, I mean, worth his salt, I mean, would probably try that firstly, his questions have to be answered. In case
Correct.
those questions come back to him once again, it's a sort of disgrace. I mean, to be honest, there are quizmasters like this who probably get a feeling out of it. But I personally don't think it's worth your thing or worth your ball to kind of frame those questions, which will be
Right.
very difficult or esoteric, or there's nothing to extract out of to get these answers. So whenever I put in the first, see, basically also one of those things, whenever I am in a quizmaster's chair, I am also a quizzer, right? So I also
Right.
look for certain things in the questions. So whatever I personally look for in the questions, I generally try to incorporate the same into the quiz, into the questions as well, right? While setting the questions. So
Right. So it's
here,
a yeah.
S, yeah, just one second. So when we, instead of X, Y, and Z, whenever I'm saying S, N, and G, people will automatically think that okay, so their names or surnames start with S, N, and G. Probably that's why he has given. It's not me, not random. Secondly, if he cracks Stalin, because that's the easier part across the country. I mean, even if it's not from Tamil Nadu, that's the easier part across the country. So if he cracks Stalin, you would probably figure out okay, so there is the catch that there has to be
S
world
is to
leaders
Stalin and N
around
is
yeah, correct. And that is how so these are all light bulb moments in your in a
right.
any quizzer. So
Fair
we do
enough.
not know the answers beforehand, right? Yeah, that is the logic from my point of view.
Fantastic. So that is that brings us to like a four-layered thing, which is your hinting with the initials. First up, the change in
Correct.
those initials from like XYZ. Second, again, like you said, the context, the relevant context. Probably, like a couple of years from now, this might be a little tougher to
Dated.
crack.
Yeah.
But right now, it's easier, which is why you could do like so many layers with it. Uh,
Correct.
so that is true, and fair enough, like you hinted that when this person was the vice vice leader, they would now probably be the leader, so that is the easiest part, and then that could give you the light bulb
Yes.
movement that you were looking for. So uh,
Mm.
I was kind of very I was in awe, like I told you, I was in awe the moment I looked at the question and the answer, and it's phenomenal to uh, bridge that divide between a clickbaity article and what went into your head. So I think it's beautiful that you, instead of washing it away, you embrace it, saying okay, this is what they are doing and this is exactly what I'm supposed to do. So that's a great change in narrative, I think, that a lot of people watching this will be able to relate to and adapt to, if at all. Fantastic. On that note, we'll go to two more questions that
Okay.
someone I
Sweet.
wanted to share. So I will quickly screen those for you.
Perfect. Next ones I think are fairly simple. This is a
Yeah.
visual question. So this is someone sitting in a bus. The person in the middle is a woman who is sitting in a bus after a successful Supreme Court ruling. So who is this person? So if we deconstruct this image a bit, on the person on the left, see, she is also a colored lady. She is kind of in respect for the person in the middle. So she's very respectful, that she has achieved something extraordinary. But if you look at the person on the right, he's a white man, and I don't think is very happy with what
Sort of
happened in, you
indifferent.
know, correct. He's indifferent, he's apathetic, and he's probably sure that, this is not, I don't know, I'm not quite, associating myself with this.
Right.
So who is this lady, right? So I think the answer, Jalaj's already got it then. So Jalaj, please speak it out.
Yeah, so Rosa Parks is what we were discussing, and someone may
Absolutely.
quickly to the question again. Uh,
Hmm.
Now I presume there's a R on your top left of your screen. So I'm
Yes, yes,
presuming you
yes.
wanted to do like A to Z in your preliminary round.
Absolutely, absolutely,
Right.
absolutely.
So coming back to this again, that is one hint that you've given through the format, which is an A to Z,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And R representing your answer starts with an R, which is something to get started with. So you eliminate
Hmm.
all the other names that start with other initials in case you land at a
Correct.
couple of alternatives. That is one layer. Now the second layer that I'm looking at is your picture per se. So tell me, in your head, did you, like, when you sit down to make an acrostic, or if you make a to Z, do you first sort of put a Rosa Parks in your answer list and then try to come at the picture or try to find a picture, or just accidentally somehow land at magical pictures like this that are so workoutable, or how does it go?
That's a very interesting question. I have never faced this question in my life, and that's an excellent question. Thank you for asking. See, now, to be by the very good grace of, the quizzers and organizers, now I've reached that point where I have a few events lined up, say every month. It was even more when before lockdown, but of course, after lockdown also, it has turned online, but still there are events on and off on every month. So what happens is I continue making questions every day.
Right.
Literally every day I do frame questions, and which is it's irrelevant to the fact that do I have an event in the forthcoming future.
All right.
For these questions, so whenever I do give a visual, I generally try to keep those visuals which are, in a way they are iconic. Not in the sense that everybody will know it, but in the sense that, there are something in the picture that will actually help people to kind of maybe somewhat, discussing with teammates or something like that. There has to be a moment where they would know that, okay, this is the answer. Right. Otherwise, an image is not helpful. I could have given a passport size photograph of Rosa Parks as well if I really wanted to, in case of art. Right. Now, so this sometimes, and this was an A to Z quiz as such. When you said that you want to discuss the Stalin, Nehru, and Gandhi one, which is why I thought I would put the other two questions as also evocative of the latter. So for this one, when I did the quiz, back in, I think
Right.
it was in February 2020. So there, it was a complete A to Z prelims, and this was from R. And I thought beforehand, okay, R, it's a Rosa Parks is a good one for R, but do I have a picture which is actually, see, I can't really ask that, who was arrested during the Montgomery, which kickstarted the civil disobedience thing, Martin Luther picked it up and everything. This is something I can't ask because it's a Peter. Any school student also, class 5, 6 students probably know this was Rosa Parks if I ask this question at that directly. But how do I change the framing slightly so that I can save myself from telling that, this quizmaster just simply asked easy questions. We didn't pay him, to see and sit through Peters. But at the same
Yeah.
time, the questions are guessable that, students there, they can
Also
actually figure
about
out.
hitting the sweet spot, right? When you say changing it
Yeah,
a
yeah,
little
yeah.
bit, so when you shift that gear, shift that valve a little bit, like, you have to be very conscious about how it doesn't like flip completely, and doesn't
Absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely. See, this is a very murky area. Let me tell you. I think many quizmasters before me, and I'm sure people going through will probably face this. That what is your audience? You have to be very aware of what your audience is. See, even if somebody do not know what Rosa Parks is, I tell in the audience. During the while giving out the answer, I generally say that, if you remember her, that, she was not allowed to sit in. She was told to step up, and
Yeah.
she said that, oh, I won't. All these stories are very, very famous, right? Now, there are maybe few people who haven't heard of Rosa Parks,
Probably,
maybe
yeah.
in the audience, maybe in the participants.
Sure.
My idea is that when I'm doing a quiz, those participants will return back to my quiz whenever I'm doing the next event. Okay, that's if I intimidate away, that is not my forte, or that is not
Yeah,
something to
not your
celebrate.
job.
That is
Sure.
and that's not my job at all. And because see, quizzing is anyway a very, it's not something, it's not a Salman Khan film. That even if
Sure.
I know I am doing a bad film, the next day, whenever the film releases, they will come again.
Great
It's
analogy.
not,
Please don't sue
right?
this channel.
But yeah, I'm so sorry. I'm
My
so sorry.
fans.
Whoever you're watching, I'm a massive Salman Khan admirer myself. I really watch his films seriously.
No,
But
I get the point. Yeah, I get the point though.
yeah, yeah.
Fair.
So this was this was Rosa Parks.
Also, the third layer again, so which is why I'm so impressed by the questions, is not like the tonality alone or the funda alone or
Yeah,
your format alone. So it's the layered approach of your questions, which is what is very interesting to look at. Now look at the third one. You did not, because you did not do a lazy job wherein you had an hour, you put a picture and you didn't go like identify her. So
yeah.
for the ones that need a little bit more push to crack
Push.
the answer,
Yeah, yeah.
you went and
Absolutely.
you did like a fine job with saying sitting in a bus after a successful Supreme Court ruling. So you also have somebody who is attributed to a major Supreme Court ruling, because like it'll have to be a major ruling if it's a Supreme Court ruling. But you did not give away too much when you kept it as Supreme Court ruling and did not say US Supreme Court ruling or some such.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I think that's the beauty in holding yourself back and giving in at the same time. That perfect mix is
Absolutely.
something that is
Yeah.
very, very interesting to look at. But yeah, on that note, I think we can safely go to question number 3, and Samanway
Okay.
can take it on. Yeah,
All right. Yeah, this is from the same set. It starts with I. So in season 8, episode 21 of Friends, very widely popular show, especially among college students. So Ross and Rachel visit a store to buy baby furniture. Now Ross meets a saleswoman and introduces him as a paleontologist. Now Rachel thought the girl won't be interested, but soon enough it casts a doom on her. The arc slowly shifted to Ross when the lady said, "A paleontologist who walks out. You are like dash dash." After the scene, it was crystal clear that Ross has seen the new date. So, whom does the saleswoman at the store go on to compare Ross with? So, okay, so these are, I'll tell you, read out the question and then I'll tell you the answer and how one can arrive at the answer.
sure.
So, first of all, what are the hints here? The question starts with I, the answer starts with I. Secondly, every quizzer wants in every quizzes that I am kind of host, they probably ask the second thing that are the blank size indicative. Here it is, the blank sizes are indicative in my quizzes. This is also a type of nudge that blank sizes are generally indicative. So the first word is generally slightly longer than the second word. Okay, starts with I, gone the blanks, and then I'm looking for a fictional paleontologist. Okay, so where I have kind of worked with rocks and all, very adventurous kind of a guy, as you can see. But there are certain things in the question which words will probably slightly hint out at the answer. What are these questions? So it says that it casts a doom on her.
Right,
Then the arc with that exclamation sign is to show that this might be of a different spelling, and this arc doom, and at the end it's crystal. So where have we heard these words, right? These are, if we make a word cloud, where have we heard these words? This is something called Indiana Jones,
right,
right? So the famous paleontologist, some adventurer, comes some sort of detective. So also made famous by Steven Spielberg in films. So this is Indiana Jones, and this is also from the same set. That's also these are also certain amount of hidden clues, or the way I sometimes speak out, I kind of give an importance to those words in case the audience or the participants can't understand initially. Through that, they probably think, okay, we have to think on those lines, and maybe let's see if we can kind of gather around the hints and slowly reach out to the answer, right?
right. So two observations on this one is again,
Yeah,
uh, how do you arrive at, I want to, when you like probably are looking at this or about or probably reading about friends, or as a quiz master you do tens of different things. You
mm,
don't necessarily watch things just so they are in your quiz. You're probably sometimes reading about them. So
yeah,
when you're doing that, what is the angle? Is the angle, hey, I want to, like, how does it start? Do you want to start with, hey, I want a friend's question? Or do you again start off with saying, okay, you saw this somewhere, you read about it, you probably saved it, and then like, okay, this analogy or this reference to Indiana Jones was remarkable with the sort of writing that was done in the show itself. So I'm going to borrow a piece from the writer of the show itself, and that sort of makes my task so much easier. So the writing is so phenomenal that saves me a lot of the additional effort that I would have otherwise done as a quizzer or a quiz master. So is this like, are we thinking alike, or how do you think?
No, see, the thing is, I tell you, this is something I'm very, very guilty of, and I'm sure many quizzers plus quiz masters are guilty of. Is whenever we are looking at a show or a TV, I mean, or a film, so we generally look with a bit of an inquisitive eye, and especially these days, I kind of try to extract questions out of every piece of content that I come across. All right, because this is not the only thing I do. I sometimes host, I mean, not the only content I do. Sometimes I make content for TV shows.
Right.
Sometimes they are, I'm not even hosting, right? So the
Sure.
other, some other guys are hosting, and for some other, maybe for some other quiz masters, and doing host content for them for some TV shows. So all these are different levels of content that has been done by the same guy, that is me, right? So obviously, on those instances, I will probably not give out these hints that, Doom, Arc, or Crystal. These are hints that I will probably refrain from giving. But since in my content for my quizzes, what I try, say for example, when I first saw Friends, I came across these lines and I thought, okay, this can be turned into a question. Indiana Jones is a good reference, and especially in prelims, I generally keep this in mind, that even if you are a first time quizzer, in my quizzes in the prelims, you have heard of at least 80% of the answers. Maybe
Hmm.
you are getting probably 10% or 20%
Hmm.
of the answers correct if you are a first time quizzer, but I ensure this, that all of everyone in the auditorium might have heard of these people. And in a school or in a college audience, say in 18 to 24 years of age, Indiana Jones is fairly popular. So that way, I am sure that this is something I can put into a quiz. And now
Okay.
friends have other references as well. Sometimes in popular culture, the references are such that they are not even quite hip or popular in this part
Sure.
of the world, right? But maybe as a quizmaster or quizzer, we know that these things exist, but I don't think they are relevant to this audience that you are kind of representing or kind of presenting yourself. So that way, I'm first of all, that way I narrow down these things. Secondly, yes, you said that about the writing, I did quote a part of the thing, because I mean it's basically a handsome paleontologist. So how many do we know as around those
Fair.
lines? And basically, he's making Indiana Jones actually has made that like profession interesting to people, right? That's what films and TV series do. They try a very seemingly boring job and then kind of make a bust out of it, and it actually has happened that
Yeah,
people
they've done
try
a
to be
pretty
more.
good job at it. Like,
Yes, so they have made it mainstream, right? Which is how will it be mainstream? That means the hero or the heroine, I mean, whoever is there in the films is actually handsome. So that's why these are things you can connect to. Apart from the fact that it starts with I. All right. So whenever I was, just to go back to the previous question slightly, that whenever I'm doing this set, I'm not too sure that I will do it in a place where I'll be have an A to Z set and the answer will start with I. These are too many coincidences to have. But
right.
from my master set, I usually scrape through all those funding, which is good enough for the prelims or an A to Z set. So that, I mean, even if you are a first time quizzer, even if you are a not so good quizzer at first, because every one of us have been through this particular phase
Sure.
where we have been through going on to a quiz and have been hugely disappointed with the kind of content being presented. So this is the onus of the quiz master, that we have to ask those questions which will come up. This is quiz master is not an art film that only a few people will go and will probably enjoy. This is not quiz is not. It's a mass thing. It has to be mass thing. Otherwise, it won't survive. We don't live in the lands of kings and rulers where they will patronize quiz masters, right?
Fair enough. So I think
They
to
won't.
sum up what you described as your journey of this particular question is,
Yeah,
first up you started off with familiarity. So your
yeah,
filters per se is like, oh, are they familiar? Okay, then this is good enough. And then you
yeah.
boil down to whether this is a good reference. Sure. Is the content enough for them to figure out hints like, oh, paleontologist, handsome, okay, famous, and then uh, friends of fans would of fans of friends, my bad, would of course know about this reference
Yeah.
inadvertently, and then again you have an eye. So what I understand is sometimes your layers are intentional, and sometimes it so happens that you end up having those layers naturally, as a natural progression per se, and then you evaluate as to how many layers do you want. So
Yeah.
I think it's a very beautiful and uh, distinct approach, I'd say. I do speak to a lot of fellow quiz setters, and everybody has their own knack of going
Yeah. Yeah.
around
Yeah.
and coming up with particular questions, even if they do not have a rigid sort of system as you approach, as you follow. Like it appears to me that you have a certain specific system in your head, and you go around it, of course, with a lot of caveats and sort of a lot of exceptions. But yeah, you have a system in your head, and it's beautiful to see how there's so much method in the seeming madness that goes around a quiz set. So thank you, Samanway. Thanks for doing this with me. And yeah, I'm sure everybody watching this has a lot to take away, or just sit at home and appreciate, for that matter. So thank you once again
I'm
for
very
tuning in.
thank you so much. I've never been through something like this ever. It's an absolute pleasure. I mean, I've never thought that I have to kind of deconstruct my own questions for future references. I do sometimes these things in my head while I'm setting the questions, because if there's the familiarity bit is very important. But I have never thought that this thought process would probably be on YouTube, or I'm sharing with fellow quizzers. Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Anwar. All
Yeah.
right, everybody watching this, I hope you had a good time. And if you want to get in touch with Samanway, the details are in the description box. You can go do that. And yeah, that's about it. Check out the previous episodes. Check out the next episode. See you around. Bye, guys. Take care and stay safe. Bye. I'm going to stop recording now. Okay.
Yeah. I mean,